Hey loves, welcome back. All right, quick show of hands. Well, mental show of hands since I can't actually see you. Have you ever been deep in an argument, maybe even a little heated, and suddenly the person across from you snaps? Wow, you are so angry right now. And you're standing there utterly floored thinking, angry? Me? No, I'm not angry. I'm actually really hurt or frustrated or maybe just confused, but definitely not angry in the way that they're implying. And here's the kicker. The way they say it, that specific tone, that exact phrasing, it feels weirdly uncomfortably familiar. Almost like you heard that precise sentence about someone else, of course, come tumbling out of your own mouth just last week, maybe even yesterday. That little jolt of recognition, that moment of, uh-oh, where your stomach does a tiny flip. If that deja vu feeling has ever made you want to crawl under the nearest couch cushion, then you, my friend, are in the right place. Keep listening because today we're shining a very bright spotlight on the stealthy, often hilarious, but ultimately relationship-wrecking mind trick that's quietly messing with your friendships, your marriage, your working relationships, and even, perhaps most importantly, the relationship you have with yourself. We're talking about psychological projection. By the time we wrap this up, you're not just going to know what projection is, you're going to be a black belt master at spotting it when it happens to you, when you're doing it yourself, because spoiler alert, we've all done it, and how to respond when someone else aims it squarely at your face. All without turning every single conversation into an impromptu therapy session, which, let's be honest, can be a little awkward at Thanksgiving dinner. Okay, let's do a super quick reality check, shall we? You know that old playground wisdom, when you point one finger, how many are pointing back at you? 3. Elementary school science, right? Turns out psychology totally backs the playground. It's not just a cute saying, it's a profound, often overlooked truth about how our minds work. We as humans routinely shove the uncomfortable, messy, downright indigestible feelings we can't stomach dealing with ourselves right into someone else's lap. And then, for good measure, we blame them for the resulting mess. It's like we're playing hot potato with our emotions, except we're insisting the potato was always hot in their hands. This whole projection thing is so incredibly sneaky, so deeply ingrained that most of us are probably doing it several times a day without even realizing it. And the cost? We're talking about simmering resentment that builds up like a leaky faucet you just can't fix. We're talking endless circular fights that go nowhere because no one's actually arguing about the real issue. Ruined dates where you leave wondering, what just happened? Friendships that just ghost with no explanation. And worst of all, a constant internal monologue of self-blame or external blame that keeps you stuck. Are you ready to quit this blame and flame cycle? Ready to finally understand why some conversations feel like you're talking to a brick wall or worse, a funhouse mirror? Then let's yank this sneaky self-sabotaging habit out of the shadows and into the glorious light of awareness. It is time to take back your peace of mind and your relationships. So let's get right down the brass tacks. What is this mind trick we're talking about? Simply put, projection is the ego's absolute favorite magic trick. It's a sleight of hand, a psychological illusion designed to protect you from uncomfortable truths. Here's how it works. You take an uncomfortable feeling, thought, or impulse that's rattling around inside of you. Maybe it's insecurity, anger, jealousy, or a deep-seated fear. Instead of acknowledging it, instead of saying, hey, this is my feeling, your ego, in its infinite wisdom, pretends that feeling doesn't live in you at all. Oh no, feeling lives over there in somebody else. And then the grand finale is you react to that person as if they are the one carrying this emotional hot potato. You blame them, you accuse them, you get upset with them, all because you've basically dressed your own internal discomfort in their clothes. Think about a classic everyday example. Let's say you're absolutely terrified of failing an upcoming exam. Your stomach is in knots, your palms are sweaty, your brain is doing mental gymnastics, trying to calculate all the worst case scenarios. But instead of admitting that fear to yourself, instead of saying, man, I'm really anxious about this test, you turn to your study buddy who's probably chilling, casually flipping through the notes, and you exclaim, wow, you are super tense about this test. You need to relax. Meanwhile, they're just blinking at you thinking, no, you're the one spiraling, friend. What just happened there? Your mind, in its desperate attempt to offload that anxiety, quickly externalized it. It got a tiny, fleeting hint of relief because suddenly the problem isn't yours, it's theirs. And bonus, you never actually have to look inward, never have to confront that uncomfortable feel of failure. It's a pretty sweet deal for your ego, right? But it's a terrible deal for genuine connection and self-awareness. Psychologists have been tracking this fascinating defense mechanism since Sigmund Freud first started dissecting the human psyche. He was the one who really put projection on the map, observing how people would attribute their own unacceptable desires or impulses to others. Fast forward to today, and modern brain scans actually show us what's happening under the hood. When you project, it literally activates the same neural circuits we use for threat detection. So, in a real, very real, physiological sense, blame feels like survival. Your brain is essentially saying, danger, not me, it's them. That's precisely why those accusations that start with you always or you never can explode so quickly, escalating a minor disagreement into a full-blown war. Your nervous system isn't registering a simple conversational point. It thinks it's under attack. And the real irony, the enemy isn't the person you're arguing with at all. The enemy is your own unacknowledged, unmanaged emotion dressed up as someone else's fault. It's a powerful, often destructive illusion. Let's paint a picture, shall we? Meet Jordan. Jordan's 31, a talented graphic designer and a self-proclaimed chill partner. Jordan rolls their eyes internally and sometimes externally whenever his girlfriend Mia says that she needs a little space after a long day at work. Space? What even is space? Jordan wonders, completely just missing the point. Last month, Jordan noticed Mia scrolling on her phone, a little smile playing on her lips, and then a little soft laugh escaped. Instant tension. Jordan's heart gives a little lurch. What's so funny at 9 p.m.? The thought, sharp, unbidden, just pierced through the quiet evening, and Mia, oblivious, looks up and shows Jordan a hilarious meme on her phone. Jordan manages a half smile, a little forced, and hears himself say, you've been weirdly secretive lately. Mia blinks. Secretive? What are you talking about? She genuinely hadn't changed her behavior, but Jordan's heartbeat, it had just skyrocketed. That night, Jordan could not sleep a wink. He replayed Mia's laugh, that little smile, over and over again. By sunrise, Jordan was utterly convinced Mia must be chatting with someone else secretly. The evidence? A meme and a laugh. The conclusion? A full-blown conspiracy. They argued, of course. Mia felt falsely accused, bewildered, and hurt. Jordan, meanwhile, felt this confusing mix of crazy and righteous. Yet he couldn't stop himself from checking Mia's phone every time she stepped into the shower. The suspicion was a gnawing, unwelcome guest in their relationship. Now here's the plot twist, the crucial piece of this puzzle. 2 weeks earlier, Jordan's boss had pulled him aside for a performance review. It wasn't a firing, but it wasn't good. Your focus has been slipping, Jordan, his boss says. And some of your recent designs lack their usual spark. Jordan feels a searing wave of shame, a deep fear of failure, but he never really processed it. He just tucked it away deep down. That unacknowledged shame, That raw insecurity by his own professional competence didn't just disappear. No, it morphed. It transformed into a hyper alertness, a desperate need to find fault elsewhere, specifically in Mia's loyalty. Suddenly, the suspicion wasn't about Mia at all. It was about Jordan's fear of personal failure, of not being good enough, wearing a very convincing disguise called, "she's gonna leave me." The internal fear of being inadequate became an external accusation of Mia being unfaithful. Stories like this, with their intricate, often painful psychological dance, play out in a million kitchens, living rooms, and text message threads every single morning. And the common denominator? The invisible puppet master pulling the strings is projection. It's a powerful, often destructive way our minds try to protect us, but at a massive cost to our relationships. All right, let's make this super practical. Because while it's fascinating to talk about in theory, the real magic happens when you can actually spot it in your own life. These are 5 telltale signs that you might be the one doing the projecting. And listen, if any of these ring a bell, please don't beat yourself up. Seriously, there is no judgment here. Just pause the video, take a deep breath for 5 seconds, and just simply notice. This is not about being perfect. It is about becoming aware. The first is sudden certainty. This is when you are 100%, absolutely, unequivocally convinced you know exactly what the other person feels, thinks, or intends, even though they have not said a single word about it. You just know. It's that voice in your head whispering, "Oh, they're definitely mad at me," or "they're just trying to manipulate me," or "they think I'm stupid." You have an unshakable belief about their internal state, and no amount of their actual behavior or words seems to contradict it. It's a certainty that feels like an undeniable truth, but it's based entirely on your own internal narrative, not their expressed reality. It's like having a crystal ball, but that crystal ball is actually just a mirror. 2 is overreactivity. Someone makes a seemingly innocuous comment. Maybe they just mention that the dishes are still in the sink, or they suggest a different route to the grocery store. But instead, inside of you, a 5-alarm fire goes off. You feel a surge of intense emotion, rage, despair, indignation that is wildly, disproportionately out of sync with the actual words that were spoken. It's like they flicked a tiny match and your entire emotional landscape exploded into a bonfire. Why? Because their comment, however innocent, brushed against an unacknowledged insecurity or fear within you, and your projected emotion is the defense mechanism kicking in. 3rd is reoccurring themes. Have you ever noticed a particular accusation or criticism that keeps showing up in all of your relationships, almost like a reoccurring nightmare? Everyone I date is so selfish. My bosses always micromanage me. My friends are always so flaky. No one ever listens to me. If the same negative trait, selfishness, rudeness, laziness, disloyalty, keeps appearing as the central flaw in everyone else you encounter, it is a massive red flag. It suggests that this theme might actually be a reflection of something you are struggling with internally, a quality you are unwilling to acknowledge in yourself, and therefore you keep spotting it everywhere else. 4 is defensive deflection, and this one is classic. Someone gives you feedback, perhaps gently suggesting that you might be a little controlling or that you tend to interrupt. And your immediate knee-jerk reaction isn't to consider it, but to instantly flip it back onto them. "I'm not controlling, you're just irresponsible." Or, "me interrupting, you literally talk over everyone all of the time." It's like a psychological hot potato. You don't want to hold that feedback, so you immediately toss it back, often with that added heat, denying your part and accusing them of the very thing you were just accused of. This is your ego scrambling to avoid discomfort at all costs. And lastly is feeling exhaustion after interactions. You leave a conversation or even just a text exchange feeling utterly drained, wiped out like you've run a marathon. You're physically and emotionally exhausted, not because the other person was necessarily difficult, but because you've been fighting invisible ghosts you dressed up in their clothes. You've been arguing with your own fears, your own insecurities, your own unacknowledged emotions, but you've done it by projecting them onto the other person. This internal battle, masquerading as an external conflict, is incredibly taxing. If you find yourself constantly depleted after interactions, it's a strong sign you might be carrying more of the emotional load than you realize. If 3 or more of those hit home for you, congratulations, you're officially human. And more importantly, you've just unlocked a golden growth opportunity. This isn't about shame. It is about awareness. And awareness is the first step to freedom. Okay, so we've talked about when you might be projecting, but what about when you are on the receiving end? Because let's be real, it happens to all of us. Recognizing this can save you a ton of emotional energy and prevent you from internalizing someone else's unowned baggage. Here are 5 clear signs that someone else is probably projecting their stuff onto you. First is baseless blame. This is perhaps the most obvious one. You're accused of an emotion, a motive, or an intention that you flat out don't feel, don't possess, and have no idea where it came from. Someone might angrily declare, "You're just jealous of my success," when you genuinely feel nothing but happiness for them. Or, "You're so bitter about that old argument," when you honestly haven't thought about it in months. They might say, "You're clearly resentful of me," and you're sitting there thinking, resentful about what? I was just asking if you wanted some coffee. It's like they're reading from a script you've never seen, assigning you feelings that are completely foreign to your inner experience. Confusing contradictions. This is where their words about you directly contradict your reality, often in the most bewildering way. They describe you as always angry when you're calmly doing the dishes, humming a tune. Or they insist, "You never listen to me," right after you've just perfectly summarized their last 5 sentences. It's disorienting because what they're actually saying simply doesn't align with your observable behavior or your internal state. They're essentially seeing a version of you that exists only in their mind, a version populated by their own unacknowledged emotions. Time travel arguments. Gotta love those. Ever an argument where old stuff, things you thought was long resolved and buried, suddenly resurfaces with extra dramatic flair? Like a zombie from the past, it rises from the grave of your relationship history, often weaponized and thrown back at you. You know, this is just like when you did X 3 years ago, they might shout, dredging up ancient history that has no bearing on the current disagreement. This often happens because they are feeling a current uncontrollable emotion, maybe inadequacy or fear, but instead of dealing with that, they project it onto a past event, making you responsible for their present discomfort by reliving an old wound. Global labels and absolutes. Pay close attention to language. When someone is projecting, they often use extreme, all-encompassing words. You never listen to me. You always abandon me. You constantly undermine me. These global labels, never, always, constantly, are rarely accurate in the messy, nuanced reality of human relationships. They are a hallmark of projection because they strip away complexity, creating a caricature of you that neatly fits their internal narrative of victimhood or grievance. You become a 2-dimensional villain in their internal drama rather than a complex human being. And lastly is physical avoidance. This one is subtle but powerful. Oof, my first husband was a golden glove at this one. When someone is projecting onto you, especially if it's a particularly raw or shameful emotion they're unwilling to own, they might physically avoid eye contact. They might subtly turn their body away or keep a greater physical distance than usual. Why? Because subconsciously they sense the discomfort of their own feelings being pinned onto you. Meeting your gaze would be too confronting, too close to acknowledging that the emotion they're accusing you of is actually theirs. It's a nonverbal cue that their internal world is not aligning with their external accusations. Recognizing these patterns is your superpower. It allows you to stop taking the bait, to stop internalizing blame that doesn't belong to you, and to understand that sometimes someone else's storm isn't about the weather outside, it's about the tempest raging within them. So we know what it is and how to spot it. But why, oh why, does projection feel so unbelievably real, both when we're dealing with it and doing it? Why is it so hard to shake off that feeling of certainty when the facts don't quite line up? Well, it turns out projection cleverly hits and hijacks two fascinating and frankly a little annoying quirks of the human brain. First up, we have confirmation bias. This is your brain's tendency to cherry pick evidence that supports what you already believe while conveniently ignoring anything that contradicts it. Once an uncomfortable feeling, let's say your own deep-seated insecurity, is flung outward and you decide the other person is angry, unfaithful, selfish, or whatever else you refuse to own about yourself, your mind immediately goes to work and starts scanning for any piece of information that confirms your projection. Did they sigh? They're definitely angry. Did they check their phone? See, they're clearly being secretive. Did they use a particular tone? Proof they're actually totally disrespecting me. Your brain becomes a super sleuth, but one that's only looking for clues that fit its preordained conclusion. It's like watching a movie and only remembering the scenes that confirm your initial bias, completely editing out everything else. This makes the projected reality feel incredibly compelling, almost undeniable, because your brain has assembled a rock-solid, albeit highly selective case for it. Second, there's emotional contagion. This is a fancy term for something we all do unconsciously. Humans mirror each other's effect. We literally catch emotions from one another, often without realizing it. Think about it. If someone walks into a room radiating stress and anxiety, chances are you'll start feeling a little more stressed yourself. If someone smiles genuinely at you, you might find yourself smiling back. It's a fundamental part of how we connect and empathize. But here's where it gets tricky with projection. If I am projecting my hostility onto you and I start acting hostile towards you, maybe my voice gets sharper, my body language tensed up. What's your natural unconscious response? You will likely tense up too. You might feel a little defensive, a little guarded. You might even feel a little flicker of hostility yourself, simply because you're mirroring my energy. And then what happens? I read your tension, your defensiveness, your mirroring hostility as proof that you were hostile to begin with. See, I knew you were angry. I exclaim, completely missing the fact that I actually created the very emotion I'm accusing you of having. And round we go. It is a vicious, self-perpetuating loop. Psychologists call this a projective cycle. And here's the truly wild part. It can cement itself in under 20 seconds of conversation. That's how fast our brains can fall into this trap. The kicker, the truly heartbreaking part of this whole cycle is that both parties usually leave feeling completely unseen and unheard. Why? Because the real topic, the raw, unacknowledged inner pain, the fear, the insecurity, the shame, never got named. It just got flung around like a psychological frisbee, leaving everyone feel bruised and confused. Understanding these two brain quirks helps us to see why projection is so sticky, so hard to dislodge, and so crucial to interrupt. All right, enough theory. Let's move from understanding to action. This is where we get some traction. I call this the 4-step unpack, and it is your practical guide for disarming projection, whether it's coming from you or aimed at you. Think of it as your emotional emergency toolkit. Step 1 is spot the projection in real time. This is the foundational step. You've got to catch it. Use the signs we just discussed as your tripwires. These are your internal alarms. When your heart starts to race unexpectedly, when you feel that sudden urge of disproportionate emotion, or when someone's claim about you just feels fundamentally off, that's your cue. Don't ignore it. Instead, silently in your head label it. Just a simple thought. Possible projection? Or, is this mine or is this theirs? That single mental note, that moment of conscious awareness creates a tiny but powerful space. It's enough space for choice instead of a knee-jerk reflex. You're interrupting the automatic unconscious reaction and giving your logical brain a chance to engage. This pause, this mindful observation is your first act of reclaiming control. It's like hitting the mental brakes before you careen off a cliff. Step 2, translate subjective into objective. This is about stripping away the story, the interpretation, the emotional spin. Human brains are storytelling machines, and often those stories are incredibly biased. So your job here is to move from the dramatic narrative to the neutral facts. For example, instead of thinking or saying, he's disrespecting me by interrupting, consciously rephrase it to, he spoke while I was speaking. Notice the difference? Disrespecting me is an interpretation, a subjective judgment loaded with emotion and a potential accusation. He spoke while I was speaking is a neutral, observable fact. No judgment, no blame, just what happened. Similarly, change, she's trying to make me feel guilty. To, she mentioned I haven't called in a few days. Facts are neutral. They don't fuel fires. Stories, especially the ones we tell ourselves about others' intentions, are the gasoline. This step helps you diffuse the emotional charge by grounding yourself in reality. Step 3 is locating that feeling in your body. This is a crucial, often overlooked step. After you stripped away the story, drop your attention below your neck. Where are you feeling this? Is there a tightness in your throat, a heat in your cheeks, a churning in your stomach, a clenching in your jaw? That somatic cue, that physical sensation in your body is telling you that that emotion is yours, regardless of who or what caused it. This is where you reclaim your emotion. Instead of, they made me angry, it becomes, I'm feeling anger, and it's showing up as tightness in my chest. Owning the sensation, physically acknowledging it within yourself immediately interrupts the offload impulse. It brings the emotion back home where it belongs and where you can actually deal with it. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about taking responsibility for your internal experience. Step 4, decide the healthiest next move. Now that you spotted it, neutralize the story, own the physical sensation, you have options, real conscious options. This is where you choose to respond from clarity and not from the projector's phantom emotion or your own unchecked reaction. Your options might include calmly asking a clarifying question. What I hear you saying is X. Is that right? Or can you help me understand what you mean by that? Taking a 10-minute breather. I need a moment to collect my thoughts. Can we revisit this in a bit? Setting a boundary. I'm not going to discuss this when you're using those kind of accusations. Simply acknowledging their feeling without agreeing. I hear that you're feeling frustrated right now. The goal here is to respond consciously, intentionally, and from a place of grounded self-awareness, rather than simply reacting to the emotional hot potato being tossed your way. You're choosing to break the projective cycle. Practice this loop and do not wait for a major crisis. Start with minor annoyances like slow Wi-Fi, a rude barista, or somebody who's cutting you off in traffic. The more you practice recognizing, translating, Locating and choosing your response in low stakes situations, the stronger that muscle will become. And then when the bigger stakes arrive, like in-law showdowns, salary negotiations, or those deeply personal relationship conflicts, you will then have the mental and emotional agility to navigate them with grace and clarity. This isn't about stopping projection. It's about building emotional resilience. All right, let's take a quick pause here for a moment of reflection. Grab a pen or just open up your notes app on your phone. And seriously, just take a second. I want you to write down this prompt and then either pause this now or answer it later. But let your thoughts flow for about a solid minute. No censoring, no grammar police, no need for perfect sentences. Just dump whatever comes to mind. And here's the prompt. The last time I got absolutely furious or profoundly irritated or deeply defensive with someone, what part of me was I unwilling to feel or acknowledge in that moment? Let me repeat that. The last time I got absolutely furious or profoundly irritated or deeply defensive with someone, what part of me was I unwilling to feel or acknowledge in that moment? Was it fear, inadequacy, shame, jealousy, a sense of powerlessness? Just let it all out. This simple act of connecting intense external reactions to the unacknowledged internal feelings is the bedrock of stopping projection. And we'll come back to this idea. So now that you've done the work, you spotted it, you owned it, now what? The next brave, beautiful step is accountability. And let me tell you, accountability is not about shame. It is the fastest way to melt away shame. When you own your own stuff, the shame has nowhere to hide. It's actually incredibly liberating. But how do you apologize effectively when you realize you've been projecting? Here's a simple 3-part script that would cut through the noise and genuinely help repair some damage. It's clean, it's clear, and it's powerful. First is name the behavior. Start by specifically naming what you did. Be clear, be direct, no hedging. For example, hey, I really messed up the other night. I kept insisting that you were angry and I wouldn't drop it. Or I accused you of being flaky when you just said you were busy. This isn't about general apologies. It's about taking responsibility for a specific action that impacted them. Next, state the actual feeling. This is the vulnerable, courageous part. This is where you share the real feeling that was driving your projection. Truth is, I felt incredibly inadequate after my work review and I didn't want to sit with that uncomfortable feeling myself. Or I was actually feeling really lonely and rejected when you said you couldn't hang out and I turned it into you being unreliable. This step is transformative because it pulls back the curtain, revealing the authentic internal struggle that led to the external accusation. It makes your projection understandable, human, and allows for empathy. Finally, offer repair. Offer a concrete way to make amends or to change your behavior moving forward. I will work on owning my own stress and insecurities instead of flinging them at you. Can we reset tonight and just enjoy a quiet dinner? Or I'm going to try harder to check in with myself first before making assumptions about your intentions. Is there anything I can do now to make things right? This isn't just an apology. It's a commitment to growth and a gesture of genuine care for the relationship. Deliver this script, take a deep breath, and let them respond. They might be relieved. They might still be hurt. They might still need time. Whatever their reaction, you did your part. Even if immediate forgiveness is not on the table, you've broken the mind reading spell. You replaced accusation with vulnerability, and that, love, is the foundation of true intimacy and connection. It is a powerful act of self-love and relational repair. Okay, so you've done your internal work. You're trying to communicate cleanly, but sometimes the other person just won't budge. They might double down on their projection, digging their heels in even deeper. What do you do then? First and foremost, Assess the situation for safety, please. If the projection escalates into yelling, threats, emotional abuse, or any form of physical intimidation, your priority in this moment is to disengage. Your physical distance is your primary boundary. You are not obligated to stay in a conversation that is harmful or unsafe. I need to step away from this conversation right now is a perfectly valid response, and then you physically remove yourself from the situation. Your well-being comes first always. But what if it's safe and just incredibly annoying? What if you are stuck in that endless circular debate where they keep accusing you of things you don't feel and you just can't get them to see reason? This is where a powerful technique called the gray rock method can be incredibly useful. The gray rock method is exactly what it sounds like. You make yourself as uninteresting and unresponsive as a gray rock. The idea is to starve the drama loop of fuel. Projectors, especially those who are deeply entrenched in their patterns, often thrive on a reaction. They want you to get defensive, to argue back, to try to convince them. That engagement, even negative engagement, feeds their projection. So instead of arguing, instead of defending, instead of trying to explain yourself, which, let's be honest, really works in these situations, you give short, bland, non-committal responses. You become utterly unengaging. Here are some examples of gray rock responses. I hear that's how you see it. Not I agree, just I hear. I see it differently. No explanation, no defense, just a statement of your perspective. That's one way to look at it. Non-committal little hum. Okay. A neutral flat okay. Let's revisit this tomorrow or later. A way to gracefully disengage and postpone. Repeating variations of these sentences delivered calmly and without emotional charge can save you literally hours of circular debate. You're not agreeing, you're not disagreeing, you're not defending. You're simply acknowledging their statement without taking it in or giving it any energy. It's like trying to light a fire with wet kindling. Eventually, they'll realize there's no fuel for their flame, and the projection will often lose its intensity because it's not getting the reaction it seeks. This isn't about being passive. It's about strategically protecting your energy and your peace of mind. Now, this is a question I get asked a lot. If I stop projecting, if I master this skill, will all of my relationships suddenly become conflict-free? Will I live in a Zen garden of perfect understanding? And the honest, simply disappointing, but ultimately liberating answer is no, absolutely not. Because the truth is, humans are wonderfully, gloriously messy. We're complex, imperfect beings with different needs, desires, and different ways of seeing the world. Friction is not only normal, it is an inevitable part of being in a relationship with anyone, including yourself. If you are not experiencing some kind of friction, you're probably not truly engaging. The difference, however, is profound. It's the difference between clean conflict and dirty conflict. Clean conflict is when two people, both owning their parts, both taking responsibility for their own emotions and projections, they can disagree without resorting to character assassination, blame shifting, or dredging up ancient history. It's direct, it's honest, and it's focused on the actual issue at hand. There might be discomfort, but there's also respect and a genuine desire to understand and move forward. You're arguing with reality and with the actual facts and feelings of the situation. It leads to a deeper understanding and stronger bonds. Dirty conflict, on the other hand, is when one or both parties are fighting shadows. They are projecting their own unacknowledged fears, insecurities, and resentments onto the other person. It's filled with accusations, defensiveness, and often those global labels. You always, you never. It's exhausting, it's unproductive, and rarely resolves anything because the real issue, the unowned projection, never gets addressed. You're arguing with the movie playing inside of your skull, a movie starring the other person as the villain, but written and directed by your own unexamined emotions. So, projection-free living doesn't mean zero arguments. That is an unrealistic fantasy. It means arguing with reality instead of arguing with the movie playing inside your skull. It means engaging with the actual person in front of you, not the caricature you created from your own internal baggage. It means that even when conflict arises, they can be opportunities for deeper connections and growth rather than destructive cycles of blame and resentment. This shift is less about eliminating conflict and more about transforming its quality. Now, I know for some of you, hearing about projection might not just be educational. It might be lighting up some serious shame bombs. You might be realizing, wow, I do this a lot, or this explains much of the pain in my life. And the thought of tackling it solo feels utterly overwhelming. And that's okay. This isn't a journey you have to take alone. In fact, for deeply ingrained patterns, professional help can be incredibly accelerating. If this topic feels like it's touching on wounds you don't feel you can quite diffuse in your own, please know that there are amazing professionals out there who can help. Cognitive behavioral therapists are fantastic because they specialize in helping you identify and challenge thought distortions, those biased stories your brain tells itself, and develop healthier coping mechanisms. They train you to catch those projective thoughts in real time and reframe them. Metacognitive therapy specifically targets the rumination, the endless overthinking and worrying that often fuels projection. It helps you gain distance from your thoughts rather than getting caught up in them, which is key to interrupting the projective cycle. Schema therapy dives a bit deeper, exploring the childhood roots of these patterns. If you find yourself repeatedly projecting the same cores, fears, or insecurities, schema therapy can help you understand why those patterns developed and how to heal those deeper wounds. But what if I can't afford weekly sessions? I hear you. Therapy can be an investment, but there are often more accessible options than you think. Group therapy can be incredibly powerful and often more affordable. Shared experiences with others facing similar challenges can be validating and provide diverse perspectives. University clinics often offer low-cost or free therapy sessions with supervised graduate students. Many apps now connect you with licensed coaches or therapists, sometimes at a lower price point or on a sliding scale. Even just 2 or 3 guided sessions with a skilled professional can provide breakthroughs and accelerate growth that might take years. And it's of solo journaling and self-reflection to achieve. I'm sorry. Think of it this way. You wouldn't try to fix a complex plumbing issue without a plumber. Your mind is even more complex. Investing in professional support is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of profound self-awareness and a commitment to your own well-being and the health of your relationships. Okay, so you're learning about projection. You're trying to spot it, and inevitably you're going to slip up. You're going to catch yourself projecting or realize that you did it after the fact. And in that moment, what's your go-to internal monologue? Is it something like, ugh, I projected again. I'm such a toxic person. I'll never get this right. If that sounds familiar, listen closely. Berating yourself, engaging in harsh self-criticism is just another sneaky form of projection. But this time, it's projected inward. You're taking your own fear of inadequacy, your own judgment, and flinging it at the most convenient target, yourself. Self-criticism is not helpful. It is just another story your mind then projects outward as victimhood. Poor me, I'm just flawed, or people-pleasing. I need to be perfect so no one sees how bad I am. It keeps you stuck in the same shame cycle. Instead, let's try something radically different. Treat each slip, each moment you catch yourself projecting, not as a verdict on your character, but as data. Just data. Say to yourself with genuine curiosity and a dash of kindness, interesting. My brain, in its well-meaning but misguided attempt to protect me from discomfort, try to offload that shame, fear, insecurity onto Sam. What safer, healthier, more effective way can I handle this feeling next time? This shift from self-flagellation to self-compassion is not just a feel-good platitude. It's backed by neuroscience. Research shows that when you treat yourself with kindness, when you offer yourself understanding and support instead of harsh judgment, you actually activate the brain's social safety system. This lowers cortisol, our stress hormone, and boosts oxytocin, our bonding hormone, which in turn enhances your ability to problem solve, learn, and adapt. In plain English, give yourself grace and you'll actually change faster and more effectively. Self-compassion isn't letting yourself off the hook. It's giving yourself the optimal conditions to truly grow and evolve. It's saying, I am a human being. I'm learning, and I'm worthy of kindness, especially from myself. This approach makes the journey of self-awareness sustainable and even more enjoyable. Okay, so you got the knowledge, you got the tools, you're practicing self-compassion, but how do you make sure it isn't a fleeting moment of insight, but a lasting transformative change? How do you keep the skill alive and integrated into your daily life? Here are 3 very powerful strategies. 1 is the weekly blame scan. And just make this a ritual. Every Friday, whatever day works for you, really doesn't matter. Just set aside 2 minutes. Seriously, just 2 minutes. We all have 2 minutes. During those 2 minutes, do a quick mental scan of your week. Where did I blame someone else this week? Where did I get disproportionately angry or defensive? Where did I accuse someone of something that felt off? Write down the trigger, the projection you caught yourself making, and then brainstorm a healthier, more self-aware alternative response. For example, trigger, my colleague was late for our meeting. Projection, I immediately thought, they're so disrespectful of my time. My unowned feeling disrespected, unvalued. Healthier alternative, okay, they're late. I'm feeling a little annoyed and undervalued. I can communicate that directly. Hey, I was getting worried when you weren't here. I value our meeting time. Over 6 months, you will build an incredibly insightful personal playbook, a treasure trove of your own patterns and breakthroughs. You can teach this concept to a friend. This is a secret weapon for learning anything. Explaining a complex idea to someone else, breaking it down, answering their questions, it forces you to solidify your own understanding and double your retention. So grab a trusted friend, a partner, or even a willing family member and walk them through what you learned about projection. Share your own examples if you're comfortable and listen to theirs. The act of teaching isn't just a favor to them, it's a profound act of learning for yourself. Plus, you'll create a shared language for navigating these tricky emotional waters together. Third is to be sure to celebrate your wins out loud. This might sound simple, but it is incredibly powerful. When you catch yourself in the act of projecting or when you successfully apply one of the 4 steps, don't just let it pass by unnoticed. Celebrate it. Even if it's a quiet internal cheer, yay, a little pat in the back. Better yet, share it with somebody you trust. I wanted to say my sister was being selfish earlier, but then I realized I was just really exhausted and felt overwhelmed. So instead, I asked for a nap. Or my boss criticized my work, and my first thought was to blame him, but I actually just sat with my feeling of inadequacy for a minute before responding. Each time you acknowledge and celebrate these small victories, you're wiring that new, healthier pathway deeper into your neurology. You're literally retraining your brain to respond differently, making it easier and more automatic over time. These aren't just minor adjustments, they are monumental shifts in how you relate to yourself and the world. Hey, if you're still with me and finding value in this deep dive into untangling relationship knots, please do me a huge favor and smash that subscribe button. And don't forget to ring that little notification bell so you won't miss the next video. While you're at it, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Which of the 5 signs of projecting or being projected upon hit you the hardest? What was your biggest aha moment so far? Your story, your experience, your insight. It might just be the light bulb moment someone else desperately needs to hear. Please, so share your thoughts and let's keep this conversation going. Now, let's talk about a modern twist to this ancient psychological defense. Projection in the digital age. Texts, emails, social media, DMs. These platforms are absolute super amplifiers for projection, and often we don't even realize it. Here's why. You can't hear a tone on a DM. You can't see body language in an email. You can't read facial expressions in a text. And because our brains absolutely hate a vacuum, they will rush to fill in those gaps. And what do they fill them with? You guessed it. Our own internal scripts, our own fears, our own insecurities, our own projections. Think about it. A simple one-letter reply like K can be interpreted in a million different ways, depending on your mood, your current level of anxiety, your unresolved issues. That K could be read as anger. Oh, they're clearly mad at me. Dismissal. They don't care about what I just said. Affection, if you're feeling particularly secure and positive. Just a quick confirmation. Sweet. Passive aggression. They're being deliberately tense to annoy me. The meaning is not inherent in the K. It's being projected onto it by the reader. This is why so many digital misunderstandings escalate so quickly, leading to unnecessary drama, bruised feelings, and those dreaded 3-day silent treatments over punctuation. So, before you fire back that equally tense or emotionally charged reply, practice the 4-step unpack in text form. Reread the message. Take a breath. Read it again, neutrally. Strip the story. What are the objective facts of the message? What is actually written without your interpretation? Feel your body. What emotions are stirring in you? Where do you feel them? Acknowledge that your reaction is yours. Craft a non-defensive reply. Choose to reply from clarity. Maybe it's a clarifying question. What do you mean by K? Or a simple neutral acknowledgement. Got it. Or even a suggestion to move the conversation offline. Let's chat about this later when we can talk. Future you will thank past you for taking that extra moment. You'll avoid countless unnecessary conflicts, save yourself from emotional exhaustion, and stop starring in your own self-produced digital drama. The digital world offers incredible connection, but it also demands a heightened level of self-awareness to navigate its projective pitfalls. So, what's in it for you? What's the big payoff, right? This is a lot of work. What's the ultimate reward for doing this challenging, sometimes uncomfortable work of quitting projection? Immense. The gifts are immense. Once you stop policing other people's minds, once you stop trying to control their emotions by making them responsible for yours, you reclaim a massive amount of mental bandwidth. Think about it. How much energy do you currently spend analyzing, hypothesizing, blaming, defending, and worrying about what others might be thinking or feeling when it's really just your stuff? That's an enormous drain. When you reclaim that energy, it transforms. It becomes creativity. Suddenly your mind is free to innovate, to solve real problems and dream new dreams. Deeper intimacy. You can finally see and connect with others as they truly are and not as characters in your internal drama. This allows for genuine connection, vulnerability, and trust. Calm confidence. You develop a quiet, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you can handle discomfort. You don't need to project your fears because you trust your ability to process them internally. You become less reactive and more responsive. Relationships themselves fundamentally shift. They transform from proving grounds where you're constantly trying to prove your worth, prove you're right, or prove they're wrong, to playgrounds, spaces of curiosity, exploration, and genuine connections. Your partners feel safer opening up to you because they know you're less likely to dump your unresolved issues on them. Your friends seek your counsel because your advice is clean, free of hidden agendas, and rooted in clear-eyed reality. Your coworkers trust your feedback because they can sense it comes from a place of objectivity and not from your own unaddressed insecurities. In short, life gets lighter. Imagine not lugging around everyone else's imaginary emotional baggage. Imagine a feeling, a sense of clarity and ease in your interactions. That is the gift. It's a profound sense of freedom, an upgrade to your entire operating system, and it makes every single interaction you have richer, more authentic, and more joyful. This isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about unlocking a richer, more connected, and more peaceful existence. So let's just bring it all home, shall we? Quick recap of our journey through the fascinating, frustrating, and ultimately freeing world of psychological projection. Projection is the ego's sleight of hand. Your feelings, your thoughts, or impulses dressed up in someone else's costume, a clever defense mechanism to avoid internal discomfort. Spot it by its telltale signs. Look for sudden certainty about others' feelings, disproportionate overreactivity, recurring negative themes in your relationships, defensive deflection, and post-interaction exhaustion. When it's aimed at you, watch for baseless blame, confusing contradictions, time travel arguments, global labels, you always, you never, and physical avoidance. Disarm it with the 4-step unpack. Spot the projection in real time. Translate subjective interpretations to objective facts. Locate the feeling in your body. Decide the healthiest next move from clarity. Apologize with grace and power. Use the name state repair script to own your part and genuinely reconnect. Protect yourself from stubborn projectors. Employ boundaries or the gray rock method to starve the drama loop of fuel. Practice, practice, practice. Do weekly reviews. Teach the concept to others and celebrate your wins to wire in new patterns. Get help if you need it. Therapy and coaching can accelerate your growth and provide invaluable support. Swap perfection for self-compassion. Treat slips as data, not verdicts, and give yourself grace. It's the fastest way to change. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, I know exactly what they're feeling, or they're definitely doing X because of Y, pause just for a moment and peek inward. Ask yourself, what part of me is this really about right now? The answer you find there, awkward, vulnerable, maybe even a little painful, but ultimately profoundly beautiful, could be the very key to keeping the people you care about close. It's the key to stopping yourself from unconsciously casting them in roles they never auditioned for. Roles that are really just reflections of your own unacknowledged stories. When you master this level of awareness, you don't just heal one relationship, you transform the energetic tone of your entire life. You upgrade every room you walk into, every conversation you have, and most importantly, the relationship you hold with your own incredible complex self. And speaking of awareness and deeper inner alignment, I want to invite you to tune in to this week's High Priestess Energy Portal, where we will be working with the energies for the week of October 19th. The veil between the seen and unseen is thinning right now, revealing truths that may have been hiding in plain sight, especially in matters of the heart. This week's energy invites you to trust your intuition over your interpretation, to listen beyond the words, and to feel the divine orchestration moving through your connections. If this episode resonated with you or helped you see yourself and or others through a gentler lens, please consider sharing it with someone who might be starring in their own internal courtroom drama. Let's help each other step out of judgment and back into compassion. This is where true connection begins. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of your heart, and I will see you in the next one.